Hello and welcome to this week's review on My Hero Academia Vigilantes. This week I'm reviewing the manga episode titled Hotline, and we kick off this review as always do with these reviews by talking about the positives and the headline positives. All the big things I'm discussing over the course of this review. I love the cover art for this episode. I love the art towards the end of the episode especially, and I loved the flashback sequence that we had with the detective character. I will just say that I'm recording this during the middle of a heat wave. I've got my window open, I've got my fan going, so if you hear any weird noises, that's where that stuff is coming from. And, well, here we are, the first review of the manga since the anime debuted, so anyone who's watching this on an autoplay who hasn't realised I'm talking about the manga and of such stuff that may well happen in the next season, this is a last opportunity to switch off before it's too late. Ooh. In any case, to actually talk substantively about this particular episode, I'm sorry if this turns out to be a short review, though let's be honest, whenever I say that it tends to go on for an extra 10-15 minutes more than it should do. But in any case, the reason why I think this one might be a short one is that much like my negatives for the Season 1 review, all the positives here ultimately come down to the same core point, which that I really love the artwork in this episode, as well as the panel work and the structure of certain artwork on the pages. I don't often talk about the title page art with these reviews, because more often than not, it's just fine. And I don't mean to say that in a way that sounds like damning with faint praise. It's just a case of that it's good, it's eye-catching, and it draws my attention. It really sets the stage for what we're about to get into. But it's never something I ever feel as though necessarily deserves like a deeper dive and greater discussion. Here it isn't the case, because I do love the little cover art bit that we do get for this particular episode. There's a part of me that honestly thinks it makes for a better cover for the volume than the volume cover that it is with this current edition of it. Maybe this will change in the future, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I suppose we need to have something that really sells the fact that we're about to get into an Eraserhead's focused storyline by slapping him on the cover, which, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm interested to see where all that stuff pans out, given what we know from the main series and the fact I bought 2 volumes back to back, because, well, it seems that ever since the anime came out, there's been a decided uptick in interest in Vigilantes, and with that, an increase in the price of each particular volume. Oh dear, let's grab these before they get too expensive. Yeah, I kind of got an idea as to where that stuff's going to be going, but still, I'm interested to see the journey. Though there is a part of me that worries this is going to go back to my issue that I had from the previous volume, where I'm going to start feeling that Crawley is underused and underutilised and feeling more like a side character in his own life story. We'll soon see where all that stuff goes, but I'll just say for the here and now, I suppose it's a little bit more stomachable, a little bit more palatable, because it is going to be a very specific series of flashbacks, rather than necessarily, oh, this is stuff that's happening in the current moment, and that Crawley is just stood there looking like a startled cod, as he seems to do most of the times in most recent volumes of the manga. Still, we'll soon see where all that goes when we get here. And I will admit that even with that in mind, he still feels somewhat underused in this episode. But, you know, that's kind of expected, all things considered, because he is falling to his death and holding out for a hero in the morning light. You know, in fairness to him, he did finally get a chance to meet All Might and get his hoodie signed in canon. You know, it did happen in episode 0, but that's not canon, which is fun. A great little moment that I kind of wish had been done as like a promotional OVA for the most recent series of Vigilantes, but still, it's great to see that he's finally met his all-time hero. I do wish that that moment had been built out a little bit more, even if it was just for the sake of a gag. But hey, he got an autograph from All Might, which means that, oh god, he's just going to keep that hoodie behind bulletproof glass now, isn't he? He's going to have its own special vault to keep it away from prying eyes or it getting damaged. That thing is going to have greater security put on it than the Mona Bloody Lisa. In any case, you know, this episode functionally is one which picks up almost exactly where the last one ended, albeit with a minor jump back in time to a couple of minutes before everything just started to get totally crazy. I will admit that all the constant jumping back and forth that we've been getting most recently is something I'm not terribly keen on. Like a volume or so ago where we had the jump to Knuckle Dust in Hong Kong, and then it's like, what, a month later or 2 months later, or however long it's been. Now we're jumping back a little bit more, and it doesn't feel like it's necessarily needed, in the grand scheme of things, given what's about to happen, but still, it's something that happens. And who's that off in the distance? Who is it that's about to save the day? It's All Might! Hoo-hoo! Yes, I kind of spoiled that by the fact I mentioned the fact he signed Crawler's hoodie, but hey, if you're listening to this, you have read the manga itself, so you know how this is falling out. And it's good to see him here to save the day. It's always good to see him doing it, and we see him saving the day along the way to save the day, with him helping people out and saving kittens and puppies from trees and what have you. Cute, it's very good. It's nice to see him come and try and save the day, as all our pro heroes are failing, and I'm sure that Captain Big Hands, or what his name is, just running around the building trying to find the terrorists or whatever that's behind this. You think it might be terrorism? Good lord. In any case, the artwork leading up to that moment is great. It is the bits that we get with All Might in his normal form. I just love how expressive that he is in that, and he's expressive in a way that we don't see in the anime. We just see the panel work itself, and those little moments are just short, and it's just little moments, but I enjoy it because it helps to illustrate just how nervous and clumsy he is normally versus his more confident hero self. It shows a side of him which, even in the main series, we don't really see that much of, because we don't get a lot of time to just see him, for want of a phrase, in his natural habitat, because he's not really in his natural habitat, because he's a bit of a crummy teacher, but in an endearing and enjoyable way. So getting to see him like this is interesting. And it is interesting to see that he really does work for himself. And I don't mean that like in a self-employed kind of way. He works for All Might. Toshinori, he works for All Might. He works in the building. Like a few volumes ago, we had this special episode where All Might explained the fact that he technically works as All Might's personal assistant, or words to that effect. So to actually see him at work pretending to be just another member of staff is interesting. And here he is in this big meeting where they're planning All Might's schedule for the coming quarter, and given just how far down the table he is, it's interesting because you'd expect that for this whole cover to work, he'd be further up the table, so to speak. He'd be the one turning around and saying, well, All Might can't do this personal appearance on this quiz show thing because he's going to be double booked with this appearance that he's doing in wherever for a school luncheon thing. You know, you're expecting to be that, but he's so far down the table. It's wild because it just shows that in the context of this location, in the context of this business, All Might is a low-ranking figure, even though All Might the hero is the figure of the organisation. It's so weird. And the fact that he has his own hero agency just isn't touched upon, really, in the main series itself. For reasons, I suppose, is simple, because it's not really that important to his story. I mean, it's interesting to see this. There's a weird, almost dark comedy of the fact that he has to work as his own personal assistant, and he's so totally down in the pecking order that he's getting bollocked for taking a phone call during the meeting. Like, makes sense, because no one else really knows who he really is, but still, it's odd. It would be like if Clark Kent worked for Superman and everyone was bollocking him for screwing around, only for him to just run off to be Superman afterwards. It's an odd way of doing things, but I like it. I really do like it. There is a part of my mind that just twigged on all this, that doesn't this technically mean that he's like committing fraud or something like that? Because here he's either a civilian taking a hero's salary, or he's a hero paying himself a second wage from government funding. Hey, all for one, screw the whole Tomura scheme, forget that. Get All Might on fraud. Follow the money. They got Al Capone on taxes. You can get All Might on insurance, on payment fraud, because he's technically a government employee and he's paying himself twice. I'm sure there's something in that. It's not going to go anywhere, but it's an odd little thing that I thought about. But still, nonetheless, I do like that whole sequence of events. That just the weird absurdity of it. That he is his own personal assistant. He's his own member of staff. And he's just treated with zero respect. It's wild. Oh yeah, that Toshinori guy. Oh bloody hell, he's such a bungler he is. And who's he kidding trying to make his hair look like All Might? I mean seriously, he just looks so scraggly. He looks like a skeleton cross with a scarecrow. My word. But in any case, you know, he gets the phone call, and we'll talk about the phone call and that sequence of events shortly. And this leads us to that great transition where we have that nice multi-page spread of All Might flying forward, while all the different things that he's doing along the way to save the day are happening. Like I just said previously, he's saving the day on the way to save the day. He's doing all the fun little superhero stuff of saving people from, I think, car accidents and burning buildings, and he's also saving kittens and doggies and all such from trees and such. And it's cute. It's really fun to see that kind of stuff, and just see All Might in his prime, and to see an element of his superhero work which isn't just him flying in to thump some bad guy really, really hard in the face until they fall over. Just seeing that almost friendly neighborhood superhero side to him that we don't really see that much either in the main series or, let's be honest, in superhero fiction more broadly. It really does feel as though we've entered into the realm of only having superheroes have to fight these giant multiversal doomsday things rather than just saving people from fires and disasters and from petty crooks. Here he's doing that whilst on the way to save people from something you'd expect to see the Thunderbirds being called out to save them from. And all that artwork is brilliant. It helps convey this sense of speed and power and motion. It makes the action, short as it is, thrilling all the same. And it being as short as it is, just ends up going on to illustrate just how fast All Might is going to get there, and yet still he's able to do all these things at the same time. Seeing him do all of this stuff, even though we know from the main canon and what's been established in this series, his power's on the decline given the injury that he has, I think that this stuff goes a better way to showing just how powerful All Might is than any amount of death battle power scaling bullshit. Like, you're seeing him saving all these people and from all these different things on the way to save someone from something disastrous, saving an entire building through 100,000 however many people. And it just shows just how effortlessly he's able to do it, and it's all presented to us in a way which is just frankly spectacular, and is the kind of superhero high adventure stuff that I love, and I do wish that we saw more of, just more broadly in superhero fiction. Of course, the big main emotional moment within this moment, or within this manga I should say, is the flashback sequence that we got with the detective. Now, I fear that this might be one of those cases where I'm falling back to saying it just works, but it's one of those times where it's hard to really elaborate and to go into too much detail on this, because I just think it's just so self-evidently brilliant that to discuss it in greater detail feels like describing how wet water is. Like, it's just obvious, but I do think that this is a brilliant way of doing a flashback, even just from a design point of view. We are here looking at the memories of the detective in this intensely anxious and fearful moment, and the way that it is drawn, it feels like just short snaps, like recollections, like a montage of little moments. It's hyper-focused on these very specific aspects, these very specific moments in the life of him and his younger sister. And as such, all the details, with the exception of himself and his sister, are shaded, they're blurred, they're obscured. You see this scratchy little board, this black border around much of it, and also I think around the speech bubbles as well, just showing just how focused it is on just these two characters in these moments, really showing how these two characters interact, how they see the world, is really building upon the relationship the two of them have between one another, and it feeling authentic. This does feel like a brother and sister relationship. It feels close to the relationship that I've had with myself and my own sister, so it feels lived in, it feels real, and again, it is presented in a way which really underlines that anxiousness, that manic sense of, oh, for the love of God, please save my sister, just save her. And it is this brilliantly well put together, just short series of events that really helps us to enhance and propel the fear and tension in that scene, as well as giving us a moment to really connect with a character on an emotional level that we've really not had with him much at all. I know that I just refer to them as the detective, and that's mostly due to the fact I struggle remembering names for the most time without them being repeated to me ad nauseum, but they're a character that I've always felt, even from the main series, probably should have been in it a lot more, because they give us an insight into the nature of police work and detective work in this world. Like, in the world of superheroes, that element of things just isn't discussed. It's not really shown. The police just appear when Batman's duffed up the bad guys and they come to take them away, and that's just about it. Like, the logistics of police work and how they investigate things just isn't gone into, and I think that's an element that could have been gone into both in the main series and here. But beyond that, we get a sense of this character as a human being, which I think they've desperately needed. Like, we've had bits of it in the past, but here we're seeing just this breaking of his character. Up until this moment, they've been a fairly determined, very focused, unflappable character, and now we're just seeing him just shatter from the fear that he might be about to watch his sister, and God knows how many civilians and heroes die. Now, of course, we as people reading this know that they're not going to. Like, had this been a situation where it was just Mikato and all the civilians in trouble, maybe the tension would still be there, but the fact you have pretty much every single member of the cast in a moment where they're about to die, you know that's not gonna happen. Like, maybe they kill off one or two main characters, but everyone, that's a bit much. But still, it does, the way that it's presented, does go some way to add an extra sense of tension and drama back into things. I think that just the reality of the things going on just wouldn't have, and we get the fun little moment where All Might flies in. He's done his hero work before the hero work. He stops the building falling down, and then he saves he saves Crawler and Captain Celebrity, with Captain Celebrity making a happy little joke about, oh well, he saved me, ah ha ha, just cute little bit, and it's fine, it's great. I really do enjoy the artwork and presentation of this episode. I apologise I can't talk about it in greater detail, the substance of this episode, but, well, I suppose that's a good point to get into the negatives, because I think that the big problem I have with this episode is the fact it's a very abrupt start to the episode, to this volume. I was expecting more, and I know you really can't drag out events like this longer than they need to be, and that in the reality that we live in, this is a weekly or fortnightly manga. So as such, for people reading it at home, the wait for them was going to be far shorter than us, where it's been about several months leading up to this moment. But I was expecting a far grander conclusion to all of this. I was expecting a far bigger start to all of this. Because last volume we had this great cliffhanger for, oh my god, what's going to happen now? And it all gets sorted out by All Might. And yes, there is some value here, because it is underlining just how powerful All Might was, close to his prime. And I'm sure that when this stuff gets animated for the anime in a year's time, it's going to look fantastic. Though, granted, I can't really give it kudos and grazies in the meantime for how it may or may not look in about a year's time, but nonetheless, there's not a whole lot to really talk about, because it is just the tail end of an action sequence. It's just the wrapping up, the ending of it. Like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the material. Like I say, I think it gives us a great insight into the true mental state of the detective, and gives us an insight into his relationship with his sister. I like the fact we have the cute little moment with Crawler finally getting his thing signed by not All For One, good lord, no, by All Might. And I love the little cute moment, so we get an episode. It's brilliant. I love the episode in and of itself, but it is just like, here's the final 5 minutes of the previous episode, and I wish that something more had been done here. I mean, I'd even settle for the delivery man just making a thing of, damn it, I'm really gonna have to change my plans going forward or something. You know, at least a little something to give us the hint that there's something else in the background here. Which we do know there's something else going on in the background here, because there's this big criminal enterprise going on in the shadows, which in about a month or so's time within the timeline of the current events of the series they're going to get into, but in the here and now, we've just spent the past few weeks dealing them having a big farewell party for Captain Celebrity. Like, we know there's something else substantial happening here. I would have liked a little bit of a hint that that would be the case, so that there's at least something to take away from this episode other than, oh boy, golly gee willikers, All Might's a fantastic hero and we all love him. Like, not to take anything away from the episode, and this is a good time to get into the overview, because I do think the episode is good. I think that for what it is a fine wrap-up to the events of the Sky Egg drama. I think it does that stuff very well. I was expecting a little bit more from it. There's a part of me that, I suppose, in the here and now, just thinking about, is a little disappointed that All Might was a solution, but it's always good to see him doing stuff beyond anything else, and it does have a broader use in the fact that we are seeing All Might being a hero in the truest sense of it. Again, without going into death battle, he can punch light kind of territory, you know. And I do appreciate that, but it just feels like a case of, and as I mentioned in this review, there's not much to talk about here of much substance anyway. There is the scene with the detective, but anything beyond that is just fantastic artwork. And as far as starts to a volume can go, oh sure, I think this is a stronger start than the previous volume, but even still, it does feel like this is stuff that could quite easily have been in the previous volume, like as an extra episode, but hey-ho, it is the way that it is. But with that said, let's move on to Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. We're rolling it all the way back to the previous video in this series of videos. Back with the Volume 7 review, when we got a comment from Big X1 who says, like I said in my last comment, I like this volume, I'm looking forward to the anime. Well, going off their previous comments from previous videos, I think it's fair to say that they did enjoy the anime. And as far as the previous volume itself, I did enjoy it for the most part, though I do think it got off to a bit of a wonky start. And regrettably, it does feel like we're getting off to a bit of a wonky start here as well, but this is just dealing with unfinished business from the previous volume. I suppose we could turn around and say that the volume doesn't really properly begin until the next episode, so we'll soon see where all that goes. Let me know what you thought about this one down in the comment section down below. Well, down below, and if you loved it, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. Either way, let me know. Thank you all for listening, thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!